Hello and welcome to the video about Pessler's new PRTG SNMP trap receiver sensor. The trap receiver works quite differently from most of the other PRTG sensors. The other sensors are very active sensors that are polling the end devices. So the other types of sensors send out monitoring queries, collect the data, and send it to the core server for analysis. The trap receiver sensor works, like I said, quite differently. It is a passive sensor. It does not send out queries. Rather, it sits back and waits for devices to send it traps. So the first step in configuring the trap receiver sensor is to actually configure your end devices to send the traps to PRTG. Unfortunately, I can't show you how to do this because it's different for every device, but usually you just need to put in the IP address and maybe the port number of the target trap receiver, in this case your PRTG server. Then you need to configure PRTG to receive the traps, and to do that you need to create a trap receiver sensor. So let me do that right now by going to Sensors and Add Sensor. And I'm going to put it for now on my probe device. And the type of sensor I'm looking for is a trap receiver. There it is. I'll name it our video trap receiver. And for now, I'm just going to leave the defaults how they are. We'll come back to these settings in a minute. And there's my sensor. Now, when the sensor is first created, it's all gray because it's still initializing. While it's initializing, I can explain one thing. You have a fundamental decision to make when you're creating one of these trap receiver sensors, and that is at what level in your tree do you want the sensor to be. You can either put it at the probe level, and then it'll receive all of the traps for all of the devices on that probe. Or if you'd like to, you can put it on an individual device, and then it receives only the traps for that device. You can also choose to have individual sensors on multiple devices, or you could even have one device with lots of trap receiver sensors on it with different type of filter rules. The granularity that you work with is entirely up to you. So to get our trap receiver working, I also need to send it some traps. And so I've got a little free test tool here called TrapGen that will send traps. So let me send a few. And let's see as a first step that we actually get some traps arriving at our sensor. There we go, our sensor has gone green, but it's not showing me the actual trap messages that have been received yet. Let's give it a second. There we go, there are the traps I just sent. So, first step accomplished. We are receiving traps in our trap receiver. Now, if all you want to do is receive the traps so that you can save them somewhere for later analysis, then you can stop now, you're done. The messages themselves will be logged under this Messages tab, and you can go back and look at them anytime you want. However, you probably want to be a little more active than that, not just logging them, but doing some kind of warnings and alarms based on the traps. So now we're going to go back and look at those settings that we had. In the settings for the trap receiver sensor, there's a tag. The default is trap sensor. The priority you can change here if you'd like, the same as you can with any sensor. You can configure which port the traps should be received on. And this is fairly important if you're getting a lot of traps. You configure here how long you want PRTG to keep the traps on the disk. Because if you're getting a lot of messages, you'll be filling the disk quite quickly. So pay a little bit of attention here and be careful how long you keep the messages. Then the most important part of this sensor is the filter and the filter rules. Now I know you can't really see these on the video, but when you create your own sensor, you'll be able to read them. These are options that you can use to filter traps. So by default, every trap that arrives will be recorded, and that's what's here by default under Any. Include Any. You can also choose to exclude some if you want messages from a particular device to be ignored, or even within one device, messages from a particular subsystem to be ignored. Then you can create a filter rule here to ignore them, and they'll just be dropped then. Then you can create filters here to define which messages are a warning for you and which messages are an error. The choices you have here for the filters are the source IP, the agent, the enterprise OID. This is an SNMP trap, so you can just define which OID it is, the bindings, the generic trap type, the specific trap type, which SNMP version number it is, and community strings. And you can use and or to build more complicated filter messages if you'd like. So now I'd like to set up an error filter that we can use to receive notifications based on the content of some of the traps. Now in my test tool, I have one that will send the string too hot. So I'm going to set up a filter that says if in the bindings we see the text too hot, then that's an error message. So let me save that. And now using my test tool, let me send a few messages with the word too hot in them. 1, 2, 3, there we go. Let's see if we see those arriving. There we have some that say too hot. And now our sensor should notice that it's getting traps saying too hot and should go red. There we go, we've seen it go red. Now if I do nothing, if I send no more traps with the error message, then in the next polling period it should go green again. So I'm going to stop sending messages. And while we're waiting for that, I'm going to look at the notifications. If you'd like to receive an email or an SMS that something has gone wrong, then you need to set up a notification. By default, it will inherit from its parent in the tree. But for the demo today, I'd like to do one that I can really see in action. So I'm going to say when my sensor goes down for 0 seconds, so immediately, I'm going to send an email. I'm not going to escalate. When the condition clears, then I'd like to see an email again, and I'll save that. So now when we see state changes between down and up, we should get emails to that email address. So let me go back to my sensor. It has gone green again, very good. I'm going to trigger it to go red again by sending it a whole bunch more I'm too hot messages. And we wait for the polling period. It has gone red, very good. We wait again for that polling period to be finished. I'm not sending it any more errors, and it's gone green again. So we've just seen the sensor go red and go green. We had a notification set up to send an email. Let's see what we see. Hey, look at that. We've got some messages arriving that our trap receiver has seen an error and has gone okay again. And so our notifications are working, we're getting the emails. Okay, there's one other thing I'd like to show you about the trap receiver, and that's how to work with private MIBs with the trap receiver. Because when you're working with traps, you will often be working with private MIBs rather than with standard MIBs. The traps that you'll be receiving are something very specific to that one manufacturer, and you need some way to translate them. Now, as an example, I've sent a few more traps. These happen to be from the Network Appliance private MIB. But when they show up, all you see is Enterprises 789.1.1.9.0, which is maybe not the most useful error message for us. So what I'd like to show you now is how to include the private MIBs in PRTG so that you get reasonable trap messages. And what you need to do is go to your standard PRTG installation directory, it's PRTG Network Monitor, and then a subdirectory called MIBs. And I have a couple tucked away here that I'm going to use as an example. And all I'm going to do is copy the MIB files that I got from my manufacturer, in this case Network Appliance, into this MIB directory. Once they're there, then I need to restart the server. So let me go into Setup and System Administration, Administrative Tools, and restart the core server. And now we need to wait a second, so bear with me until the server's back. It takes a couple of minutes. Okay, once the server comes back up, we need to log in again and go back to our sensor. Here it is, our video trap receiver. And I'm going to send the same trap again. This was that NetApp one. Wait for it to arrive. And now we see, instead of that funny number, the .1.1.9.0, I think it was, now we see that it's the NetApp MIB and it's the product serial number that's sending the trap. So that's what I wanted to show you today with the SNMP trap receiver. I encourage you to look at the other videos we have on our website, and if you have any questions either about the trap receiver or about any other feature in PRTG, you can write to us at any time at support@pestler.com. Thanks and bye.